So today's recipe is one of my favorite ways to eat Nutella. Of course, I will enjoy it by the spoonful, but these Nutella brownies, loaded with chocolate and hazelnut flavor, they're just really good and they come together really pretty quickly. So get your oven preheating to 350 degrees and let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do in this recipe, and the first thing you should do in pretty much every brownie recipe, is we're going to combine our eggs and our sugar. We're going to be using 3/4 cup or 150 grams of granulated sugar, and you will need 2 large eggs. Go ahead and crack these right in the bowl. Should really always crack them in a separate bowl. So a lot of people like brownies that have that shiny, crackly, like almost meringue-like topping, and this is how you get those. You're going to whisk your eggs and your sugar together very, very well. Kind of think like if you were making an actual meringue. I'm going to whisk these vigorously for like 60 seconds. You could even use an electric mixer. And this is going to help give us that shinier, cracklier top. It's not going to be as obvious as it would be on like a classic brownie, but it still helps. Okay, once that's nicely combined, let's add our Nutella. So total for this recipe, you're going to need 1 cup, but we're dividing it. We're going to add 3/4 cup now, and 1/4 we're going to save for the topping. Let's go ahead and drop this in. It smells so good. We're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And by the way, I do have a video on how to make your own vanilla extract. If you're ever wondering what brand this is, it's homemade. Okay, we'll whisk this together. The Nutella might not want to budge at first, so just be patient. It'll all come together. Now, all of the chocolate flavor from this recipe comes from the Nutella. We're not adding any cocoa powder or melted chocolate. I did try a couple versions where we did just that, and the flavor was too strong on the chocolate, not enough on the hazelnut. So just using Nutella gives us the perfect balance. Things don't look too pretty at this point. Looks a little weird. Don't panic. Just keep whisking. Okay, and once this is looking nice and uniform, we're going to add our butter. So you're going to need a 1/2 cup of melted, mine's mostly melted, that's fine, melted unsalted butter. We'll go ahead and pour this in. You guys know we do not waste butter around here, so I'm going to scrape the bowl. It's like 113 grams of butter, and we will whisk again. Just start gently. You want everything to combine. If your butter is too hot, you might actually have some separation issues, so just let it cool a little bit before you add it. And just whisk really well. We want a nice, smooth, uniform batter. Next, we need a separate mixing bowl where we will combine our dry ingredients. You just need 3. We'll start with 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. That is 185 grams. We are going to use a teeny tiny bit of baking powder. This is just an 1/8 teaspoon of baking powder. It adds tiny bit of lightness to keep the bars from being just too dense and too fudgy, but it's just a little bit, so it's just a little bit of lift. It works really nicely here. We will also be adding some salt, which, let me grab my measuring spoon. We'll need 3/4 teaspoon of salt, table salt. There's a 1/2, and here's my 1/4. One of these days, I'll get a 3/4 teaspoon. One of these days. All right, let's whisk these ingredients together. My whisk is dirty because it's the only one I have right now. So I'm just going to use a spoon. The important thing is you get that leavening agent, that baking powder, nicely incorporated. Now here's where I kind of slow down with a whisk. I'm going to switch over to my spatula here. I'll add all the dry ingredients at once because it's not very much. It's fine to do that. And then I'll use my spatula to just kind of fold everything together. You don't have to be delicate. It's not like you're making like pancakes or muffins, but I don't go crazy with whisking. We do all of that with the eggs and the sugar, and now here, we can be a little more gentle. Scrape the sides and bottom. We want everything nicely combined. Clear bowls make it easy to see if you missed anything. All right, let's grab our baking dish. So we're going to bake these in an 8 by 8 inch square pan. I highly recommend lining with parchment paper. It makes life a lot easier, cleanup easier. And then when the bars are cooled, you can just lift them out and slice them up. And then we'll just spread this into the baking pan, get it nice and even. All right, final touch for this recipe is the last bit of Nutella. Remember, we have 1/4 cup of Nutella here, and I'm just going to kind of dollop it over the brownies. We're going to swirl it. It'll look a lot prettier in a minute. All of that. Okay, and then I just use a knife to swirl it and just go back and forth in rows, leaving a little space, and then turn your knife and go the opposite direction. And look, it started so messy, but it looks pretty beautiful now. All right, this is going into the center rack of our 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. It's going to need to bake for about 30 to 35 minutes. If you're using a glass pan, I actually recommend metal strongly for this recipe, but if you're using glass, it's going to take longer to bake. I usually use the toothpick test to tell that it's done. It should come out clean or with a few moist, fudgy crumbs. All right, now while these are still warm, you're going to want to, or at least I highly recommend, you sprinkle them with a little bit of flaky sea salt. Make sure you let these cool at least most of the way before you cut into them, because because a lot of times if they're not cooled completely, they'll be super gooey inside. All right, once they're cooled, remember we put them in this parchment paper sling, so they remove so easily. Look how clean that is. I can just put that away. Let's take a look. Careful with those corners. Got these beautiful Nutella swirls. Everything is looking good. We won't cut all of them yet. Got a little crackle on top, though the Nutella does interrupt that. That is how you make my favorite Nutella brownies. If you like these, make sure you also try my Nutella stuffed brown butter cookies because I might like those even a smidge more than these. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. So good.